Today on this Sonic Obsession, part 2 of A Brothers Records.
Hi folks, I'm Steve McLeod and this is my friend John Whidden.
Hello.
And today is part 2 of my brother's records. The last video I was revealing sort of the top gems I had found so far in my brother's record collection. Just to backtrack very quickly, my brother has medically no longer possible to go home. He lives in a full care home. So I've adopted about 300 of his albums. And I've been going through them, and this is the second batch I'm going to show of 10 records, interesting ones that I found, kind of divided thematically, so here we go.
And I have no idea what he's going to show, but I'm really looking forward to it, because your brother had quite eclectic taste.
Yeah,
so.
he did, yeah. And it's kind of all over the place, although there's no classical or anything. He did have classical albums, but I'm really not interested in that genre, so
okay.
On we go. In the second best Americana category, the first batch of records, I had Working Man's Dead by the Grateful Dead, and this is GP by Graham Parsons. Graham Parsons is often credited with being the father of country rock or Americana,
well,
or
certainly
one of them. Yeah,
I mean, you can go back to I think you'd go back to Sweetheart of the Rodeo with his work with the Byrds.
Yeah,
on that album, that's kind of considered one of the very first albums.
And the International Submarine Band,
right? Yeah,
and Flying Burrito Brothers, and this is his 1972 solo album. Just an absolute fantastic album. He plays with a bunch of session players from LA and from Nashville. And what's really noticeable about this album is he sings with Emmylou Harris throughout. The harmonies are wonderful.
A beautiful sound, yeah.
And I mean, obviously, she's one of the giants of that genre now. Yeah. And 1972, and this is on, what label is this on?
That was Reprise, I believe, wasn't it?
It was Reprise.
Yeah.
There it is there.
Yeah, the work that he's done or did with Emmylou Harris is it's just incredible. It's just this magical sound.
Yep. And the next one is the best of New Wave. And I don't even know if this really falls into that category, except...
I'm trying to peek there.
Oh, it's... Seconds of Pleasure by Rockpile, which is as much a rockabilly album with Dave Edmunds in the band as it is new wave with Nick Lowe.
Yeah, I don't know if I put it in new wave or not. It's kind of on the borderline, don't you think?
It was sort of lumped in at the time with those albums that were coming out, and this was 1980. It was the lone album they put out. They had really carved a reputation as being this incredible live act at the time. Just high energy live shows. And the critics were kind of mixed on this album.
I love that album. I think it's a great album.
And they said it didn't really reflect the energy of their live shows, but I disagree.
Oh, I totally disagree with that.
This is a corker, just an absolutely fantastic album, and I'm glad it was in my brother's collection, because I had it years ago and lost it.
I have that album, and I have the Graham Parsons album too.
Yeah. Next is the best record from San Francisco.
Now this is going to be...
Yeah, let's see if you can guess this.
Oh, I'm going to say...
My favorite record from San Francisco.
Jefferson Airplane.
No, it's not.
Big Brother and the Holding Company?
No.
Well, not the Grateful Dead again.
No. Okay.
Quicksilver Messenger Service? Really? Oh, I didn't think you liked Quicksilver.
I do.
I love Quicksilver.
This is their debut album. Came out in 68, was it?
I can't remember.
Got it all written down here. Yes, 1968. It was their debut on Capitol, I believe.
I believe it's Capitol, yeah.
Capitol Records. This is the Canadian version. It's a little battered, I gotta say. The cover's a little worn, and the album was obviously well loved by my brother. I remember him playing this a lot, actually. It's a little noisy, but not so much while the music is playing. You know, there's a lot of
it's in between tracks.
In between tracks,
snap, crackle, and pop.
And it's a really sonically wonderful album.
Well, the guitar work by that band was incredible. I mean, they were a really great band. Anyway, very much overlooked band from San Francisco because most of the attention goes to Jefferson Airplane and the Grateful Dead. You know, that's who gets most of the attention.
And these guys played live for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years before they finally went into the studio and recorded this. So they had the chops. And John Cipollina was great.
Oh, he's a tremendous guitar player,
And I think this is probably their best album. I don't know them that well beyond this. And
I would choose Happy Trails. Well, I was going to say I would choose Happy Trails over that.
Which was a
better album.
Which was a live album.
Yeah. But that's a tremendous album. And Shady Grove was a really good album too.
Next on the list is my favorite 80s album that I found in my brother's collection, and it is Private Revolution by World Party. World Party was the brainchild of Carl Wallinger, who used to be in one of John's favorite bands,
the Waterboys, with Mike Scott.
Yeah, this came out in 1986. Just a fantastic album. He's a great songwriter. I love his voice. He's sort of Dylan-esque, but a much better singer than Bob Dylan, if that offends anybody. I'm sorry. World Party went on to put out another 3 or 4 albums into the 90s,
something like that, yeah.
Including Goodbye Jumbo, which is one of my favorite albums of that decade. I was a little surprised that it was in my brother's collection because, like most of us, I think he had moved on into CDs at this point, but I was just absolutely thrilled to find this in the collection.
I have that on vinyl, but I was at that time making the move from vinyl to CDs too. So it was one of those albums that probably came out on vinyl and CD about the same time.
I would think so.
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
And oddly enough, Sinead O'Connor sings on this album. I don't recognize many of the other people on this, but that's one name backing vocals on this album. Private Revolution. The best acoustic blues album I found so far.
Sonny Terry Brown. John Mayall.
The Turning Point, John Mayall. This was recorded, this came out in '69. It was recorded at the Fillmore East.
Oh, really?
Have you never heard this?
I've heard it years ago. I'm trying to remember who. Oh, John Mark, Steve Thompson, Johnny Allman, John Mark. And they formed a group called Mark Allman later on, which was a really good band as well. It's been a long time since I've heard this album.
It's a strange album that there's no drummer on it, and of course they don't have the superstar guitar players at this point. This was before Mick Taylor had joined, Peter Green and Clapton are long gone.
Yeah.
And it's just a fantastic live recording and a fantastic, mostly acoustic blues.
Okay.
Mayall plays slide guitar on it as well, but probably my favorite John Mayall. I'm not a huge expert on John Mayall, but it might be my favorite of his albums. Okay, the next category is best soul album I found so far in my brother's collection, and it is Otis Redding's Dictionary of Soul, complete and unbelievable. Came out in 1966. It's got an interesting cover of Day Tripper by the Beatles on it. But what makes this album interesting for me is it's actual Jamaican pressing of this album. I've never had a Jamaican pressing of any album before.
I didn't know they pressed albums in Jamaica.
Even the reggae albums I had were pressed somewhere else. It's not the greatest sounding. It's kind of lo-fi. I don't know whether that has anything to do with it being pressed in Jamaica or not, but it is an interesting album to have, and it is the oldest one that I found in my brother's collection.
And I mean, it's Otis Redding, so I mean, it's automatically it's good, right?
Yeah.
As they say, Otis could sing this phone book and it would still be great.
My next category is the best album, in my opinion, that came out of the Southern California scene in the 1970s that my brother had in his collection, and it is Heart Like a Wheel by the beautiful and talented Linda Ronstadt.
Very talented. She had a knack for picking, probably she worked with Peter Asher, her producer, in choosing the songs, but she had a knack for choosing songs that were, just suited her voice perfectly. And she also had a knack for, using songwriters that a lot of people wouldn't have heard tell of, perhaps. Well, Warren Zevon is the example that jumps out at me.
You know, she's got the who's who of L.A. Laurel Canyon scene playing on this album. It's incredible. All of the Eagles are here.
Well, a lot of the Eagles were part of her backup band at one point. Glenn Frey and Don Henley anyway. Maybe Randy Meisner and Bernie Ledden. I can't remember, but Russ Kunkel's got to be on that album.
Yeah, he plays on one of them.
Is Waddy Wachtel there?
He's got to be.
He's got to be somewhere.
There's David Lindley, Maria Muldaur,
James Taylor,
Peter Asher's on it, playing. Taylor's on it. Emmylou Harris is on this, and it's mastered by Bernie Grudman, so it sounds incredible. It's just an incredibly, wonderfully crafted album, and the title track, "Heart Like a Wheel," I think is just absolutely one of the most beautiful Canadian songs ever written. It was written by Anna McGarrigle.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
The McGarrigle sisters, and she makes this her own as she usually does with the covers that she.
Well, that's what she was able to do,
it's
right?
Just a fantastic version of that song. Yeah, great album. Sounds wonderful. The best overlooked album by a Canadian. Any ideas? You're just kind of.
No, I see it down there. Rick Danko.
Rick Danko of the band. His solo debut album, which came out, I believe, in '77. Yeah, it's an original Canadian pressing.
So in the back it says Rick Danko and Rob Fraboni. Did he
he's the
produce
producer.
it? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and as you would expect, he was my favorite member of the band. I just
really?
I loved his voice.
Oh, okay. Well, he had a tremendous voice. Yeah.
Yeah, one of three great singers in that band, and you know this doesn't stray too far from home. It could easily pass as a
band album.
Yeah. All the members of the band play on this.
Yeah, they probably woke up one morning, went to the studio and recorded it over a few days.
Yeah.
I mean,
You get some help from Ron Wood on this and Blondie Chaplin.
Oh, okay. Ronnie's on it.
Doug Somm is on this.
Oh.
Jerry Beckley, I'm assuming that's the guy from America.
From America, yeah.
Just a great album, and it didn't do a whole lot. It's sad that it didn't do much, but yeah. Self-titled debut by Rick Danko of the band. Best UK synth rock he had in his collection, and I got
pretty much everything.
Ultravox, which is a nod to John. John really likes Ultravox.
I love Ultravox, yeah.
And Midge and all of those folks. This came out actually. When did this come out?
That was mid '80s.
81.
Early '80s. Yeah.
And it came out last year on a
record store day.
Yeah, it was
2 album set.
Yeah, it was remixed by Stephen Wilson,
which I never did see anywhere. No. I'm not sure if it was sold in Canada or not. I didn't see it in any record stores, and I haven't seen it online.
Yeah, and
that's a great album,
and it sounds fantastic. And and I'd never heard it until. I found it in my brother's collection, and again, it says a lot about the breadth and.
Well, that's like Ultravox had a string of really good albums too. There was Rage in Eden, there was Lament, there was Vienna,
which was the one before this.
Yeah, I mean, just a string of just really good albums that I find still stand up over time.
So the last one is just sort of a bit of a knockoff I threw in there, and it is Best Canadian Albums by a Bar Band. And it's, most Canadians will know this, Doug and the Slugs.
Cognac and Bologna?
Bologna?
Bologna, yeah. I say Bologna.
That's the debut, and this one is Music for the Heart of Thinking, which is a good title, I thought.
Another band that had a string of really good albums too, and they were tremendous live.
They were the hardest working band in showbiz in Canada in the 1980s.
And you had to see them live to fully appreciate them.
And I never did.
Oh, really?
I mean, they were touring Canada back and forth constantly.
Oh yeah, I mean, I saw them at the Misty Moon so many times. I can't remember. And then one year we actually had a birthday party for Doug. Doug Bennett was his full name.
The lead singer and the chief songwriter in this band.
Yeah, we had because I was working at a radio station at the time, C100, and we had a thing that we put over us, and there were 3 or 4 of us walked on stage, and it was kind of like to represent a slug, if I remember correctly, but it it was either his birthday or Halloween or something like that. And it was a lot of fun, and they were a lot of fun anyway.
This is Doug here in the middle, Doug Bennett.
Yeah.
Who is no longer around,
No,
unfortunately.
Doug died a few years ago.
There was a really good CBC documentary, apparently, that came out last year on the band.
I haven't seen it, but I read something about it not too long ago. I got to check it out.
But they signed to RCA, and they had these records were released in the States, Australia, and Canada. And I know they did very well in Canada. I don't know. I suspect they probably didn't do that well elsewhere. But this sounds great too. I don't know who produced this. It is a really fantastic.
Well, the band was very tight, and Doug just had a really unique voice. Just one of those voices that would just jump out at you and stay with you,
Well, he said, I was reading, in relation to that documentary, he said he didn't have a good voice, but I disagree.
Oh, I totally disagree with that.
I think he had a fantastic voice. And that's it. That's the second look at my brother's albums that I have adopted. And
well, we may do this again because it was kind of fun, and I'm surprised at the variety of albums that he had, and the fact that you didn't know that he had a lot of these albums.
Well, forgot about a lot of them like that. Certainly, I knew Doug and the Slugs was in there and stuff like that. But it's been like kind of like Christmas in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of
opening up packages and not really knowing what was inside.
Yeah, a great walk down memory lane too.
Yeah.
So anyway, so folks, thanks very much for watching, and we hope you have enjoyed this Sonic Obsession.